Hello, I am Fred, and welcome to the Quantum Bits channel, a YouTube channel about quantum physics, retro computing, and other geeky stuff. Today is very special because this is actually my very first video, and because it will be about the Amstrad CPC 464, which was my first home computer. This will be the first of a three-parts video. In this part, I will share some context and a bit of history of the Amstrad CPC in France, then try to take care of the case and the keyboard of my own CPC. But enough chit-chat. Let's jump into it. In the mid-80s, the home computing industry in France was driven by the Computing for All plan, or Plan Informatique pour tous. A bit like the Computer Literacy Project with the BBC channel in the UK, it meant that schools, or at least some schools, were equipped with microcomputers. Though computers from Boule, Goupil, or Leonord were used, Thomson and its series of 8-bits machines was clearly the big winner for the French market. There were other French computers, of course, like the Excel 100 from Excelvision or the Hector series of 8-bits microcomputers. And there were the British computers like the Ulrich 1 from Tangerine and the Sinclair machines like the ZX81 and later on the Great ZX Spectrum. But despite all the qualities of these computers, Amstrad was the real deal. Launched in France by late 1984, it really took the market by storm. The Alan Michael Sugar Trade Company, or Amstrad, was better known in the UK for its consumer electronic devices. Triggered by the success of the Sinclair machines, Alan Sugar decided to jump into this new market, but with a twist. It will be a computer targeted at the truck driver and his wife, rather than electronic hobbyists. Marion Vanier was responsible to launch the CPC 464 in France. Even if she had no background at all in this business, she did a tremendous job at it. Soon TVs and magazines were filled with Amstrad ads and, for some reasons, with crocodile Muppets. And indeed, the 464, with its capabilities, its funky keyboard, its integrated tape deck, and its included monitor was a fantastic deal. Benchmarks in the press were impressive. And for Christmas 1984, I got an Amstrad CPC. My very own first computer. About 6 months later, I could buy an external DDI floppy disk drive. It was followed by an internal RAM expansion board by Vortex. And of course, for gaming purposes, I got myself a Spectra Video QuickShot 2 joystick. This was the setup for my very first and beloved computer. At the time, I was avidly reading this French satirical magazine, which was very famous among geeks. They had a sort of love-hate relationship with Amstrad, which often made the headlines, for good reasons, when Amstrad bought Sinclair, or bad ones when they invented a fake Amstrad computer just for the pleasure to piss them off. Let's say that their relationship turned a bit sour after that. But enough with the past. 2 years ago, I bought this CPC 464 online for an almost reasonable price. It is in good conditions. It is working, including the tape deck that has been serviced since. Still has got some flaws. It is about time for the 40th birthday of the Amstrad CPC to take care of them. Here's the mighty beast in its colorful glory. It is on the bench, connected to a video capture device and to a power supply. Let's take a closer look at the machine. The case is in good shape, but the plastics are turning a bit greenish and sadly a little brittle. Cracks that are starting to form here and there. Also, there are discoloration spots that are starting to form. Not great at all. Here's the power supply I use. It is very basic, nothing fancy about it. It delivers 5 volts DC and 2 milliamps, which is more than enough. It uses a 2.1mm center positive barrel jack. We're on the bench. Let's turn the computer on. Hopefully it is still working. And we have a picture. Great! It is black and white though, but it is due to my crappy capture device which only understands PAL signals. Let's add a green filter. This way it'll look just like the green monochrome monitor I had as a kid. Now let's take a look at the keyboard. It is only partially working, unfortunately. The number pad is not working, as you can see. Same for the cursor keys and a few others. The keyboard is sick, I am afraid. Let's tackle these issues, first the case and then the keyboard. We are a few weeks later. In the meantime, I found and bought online a CPC case from a really nice chap. The package has arrived. Let's take a look. The plastics of the case are in much better conditions. It is not perfect though, as I was notified by the seller. The window of the tape deck is a bit scratched. The back side is not perfect either. You can see here that the case is actually a bit bent. This can be fixed, and the seller was clear about these small defects. Here are both cases. As you can see, there are some differences. The old case has yellow markings for the tape deck. The new one, like mine at the time, has red markings. I gave the case a warm, soapy bath and a good scrub with a toothbrush. Meanwhile, I put weight on the new case for a couple of days, using books on gravity because I am a former physicist with a bad sense of humor. To open the case, flip the enclosure and remove the 6 screws on the bottom. They're circled here in red. Once the screws are removed, flip back the enclosure and carefully open the top part. Be very gentle because the keyboard flat ribbon is very fragile. You will have also to remove the connector coming out of the tape deck. Now let's have a look at the main components of the PCB. Here is the Zilog Z80 CPU, the ROM. These are the RAM chips, the gate array, the sound generator, the peripheral controller. These are logic glue. Here's the CRT controller and the keyboard connectors. Let's take a look at the top part. This is the data quarter. It has already been serviced, and I installed new belt 2 years ago. To detach the keyboard, you will have removed 6 screws and the ground connector. They're circled here in red. The keyboard is now detached from the top case. The next step is to gently remove the flat ribbons keyboard connectors. This can be a bit tricky. These connectors are sometimes brittle and may break. To be safe, I actually remove them off camera. To get access to the keyboard membrane, you will have to push on all these tabs circled in red. This is a part of the process that I do not like at all. I feel each tab is about to break. This is the mechanical part of the keyboard. And this is the membrane. At first look on both sides, it doesn't seem bad at all. At close inspection, the membrane is actually in very good conditions. And so are the connectors. Nothing faulty that I can see. The mechanical part looks okay. The plastics are not in super great conditions though. The keys feel a bit mushy, but nothing is obviously wrong here. I took the time to clean the membrane, spraying IPA on both sides and using a soft microfiber cloth. Let's now have a look at the connector itself. It doesn't look too good and wiggles a bit. As you can see, one of the stands broke off. Actually, the plastic case is falling apart. Let's take a look at the connector under the microscope. And I'm looking for some cracks, but there is nothing obvious. I nevertheless reflowed fresh solder. The connector looks better. It's not wiggling anymore. The keyboard is now reassembled, and I gave a swipe on the keys. Before reconnecting the keyboard to the motherboard, I sprayed some contact cleaner on the connector. Let's give it a try. Let's turn the power on. We have a picture, but the keyboard is actually working even less than before. I obviously make things worse. Only a few keys are now working. What a mess. Let's try to fix this. I reverted the process, unscrewed the keyboard, checked that everything was okay, and put things back together for another try. Let's power the computer once again. And it seems that we are back to square one with the same keyboard defects. So I had a closer look at the keyboard, and it appears that it all comes down to old plastics. At least 2 tabs broke off. Well, actually 3 tabs broke off. The membrane is not flush, and keys are not making good connection with it. There is not much I can do about that, unfortunately. 2 weeks have passed, and I found online a new keyboard. Actually, from the same seller that I bought the case. Here are both keyboards. The new one is on the bottom. The old one is on the top. Nothing to tell them apart except for these 2 letters. The new one actually feels much better. It is in perfect conditions, and the plastics are top-notch. All the tabs are looking fine. Let's give it a try. Let's turn the Amstrad on once again and test the new keyboard. The new keyboard is working perfectly fine. Great! Before putting everything back together, let's take some time to clean up the motherboard. For the PCB, I spray IPA and use an anti-static brush. The edge connectors seem to be a bit oxidized. I spray contact cleaner and use a magic sponge to clean up the edge connectors. You have to be gentle when using these magic sponges because they are abrasive, but it works very well, as you can see. Let's clean the other side. There we go, a clean and nice motherboard. To remove the data cord from the old enclosure, you will have to remove the screws circled in red. Once done, you will be able to remove the speaker. The next step is to remove the power button. And then the volume knob. The last step is to remove the power LED. The data recorder is in its new case. I resoldered the leads of the power LED that had bad solder joints and used hot glue to put back the LED itself. Everything looks fine. I used the window of the old enclosure that looked better. Before putting it back, I let it soak into 303 for a while. There we go. This is the final test. The new case looked way better. Let's turn the power on. The keyboard works perfectly. Let's write a few lines of BASIC. Yep, everything works and looks fantastic. Great. Here we go. A brand new case and a new keyboard. My CPC is now ready for new adventures. Adding a DDI floppy drive as well as a DDI5 with RAM expansion by Zaxxon. This will be the subject of the next part of this series of videos. Thank you for watching this video. This was my first one, so please don't be too harsh with it. If you liked it, please subscribe. Feel free to add any comments. See you on the next one.